Here's something most salespeople will recognise. You know new business matters. You intend to prospect. Most weeks you genuinely intend to. You might even block out time for it. But Friday comes around and the calls still haven't happened, and you're not entirely sure where the week went. And the frustrating part is that it doesn't seem to respond to effort. You can be busy, organised, genuinely committed to growing your patch, and still it keeps slipping. So you tell yourself it's a time problem. If you could just find a clear run at it, you get it done. But here's what over 30 years in field sales has taught me, as an account manager, as a sales manager, and sales director leading full commercial teams. The reason prospecting doesn't get done has nothing to do with time. And until you understand the real reason, no amount of diary management is ever going to fix it. Because it's not working because you're not trying hard enough. It's that you're working inside a structure that will always find something more important to put in front of it. Every single week. And while that's happening, something else is happening quietly in the background. Something most salespeople don't notice until it's already been going on for years. That's what this video is about. There's a reason new business never quite makes it to the top of the list. And it's got nothing to do with how much you care about it or how clearly you understand that you should be doing it. Think about a typical week. Monday morning, there's a customer who needs a problem resolved before the end of the day. Tuesday, there's an order to chase or a query you need to come back on. Wednesday, someone you visit regularly calls to move a meeting and needs a new date from you. Thursday, the admin that's been building all week finally has to get done. Every single one of these things has urgency baked in. Someone's waiting. There's a deadline. And something will go wrong if you don't deal with it. The week fills up, not because you're disorganised, but because every piece of it arrives with a built-in reason to act right now. Now, think about the new accounts you've been meaning to contact, the companies in your area you've never spoken to, the buyers who don't know you exist yet. None of them are chasing you. A prospect that hasn't been contacted yet can't call to follow up. They're not waiting on anything. There's no pressure, no deadline, and no consequence to leaving it one more day. So you do. And then you do it again the following week. This isn't a discipline failure, and it isn't a time management failure. It's a structural one. Reactive work wins by default because it arrives preloaded with urgency. And urgency, not important, is what determines what actually gets done in a working week. Everyone agrees prospecting is important, and it still loses every week to things that feel more pressing, because importance on its own has never been enough to move anything to the top of a busy salesperson's list. And once you see that, you start to understand why blocking out a Friday morning was never going to fix it. Because the problem isn't where prospecting sits in your diary, it's that nothing about prospecting makes it feel non-negotiable in the way a customer deadline does. That's the structural problem. And it has a consequence that most salespeople don't see coming until it's already well underway. Most salespeople frame the prospecting problem as a growth problem. They're not adding new accounts fast enough. The territory isn't expanding the way it should. The numbers aren't moving in the right direction. That's true, but it actually undersells what's happening because it assumes that the territory is at least staying where it is while you're not growing. And it isn't. Every area has a natural churn rate. Accounts close, buyers move on, competitors get in, contracts don't renew. It happens slowly, and it happens mostly quietly. There's rarely a dramatic moment where you lose a significant account and everything shifts overnight. It's more like a slow leak. One account drops off, another reduces their orders. A buyer you've had a solid relationship for 3 years moves on to a different business, and his replacement wants to review everything from scratch. None of it feels catastrophic in the moment. Each individual loss is manageable. But if nothing new is coming in at the bottom, every one of those losses just quietly makes the territory smaller. I've worked with salespeople who had genuinely strong patches, solid relationships, decent renewal rates, consistent activity levels, and still found themselves 10 to 15% down on where they were 3 years ago. Not because anything had gone dramatically wrong, just because nothing new had come in. Every account they'd lost had been replaced with nothing, and the area had contracted around them without them fully feeling it happening. Here's the way I think about it. Existing accounts are the ceiling of what a territory can produce. They're what you're working with right now. Prospecting raises the floor. It's what stops the natural churn of any area from quietly eroding everything you've built. Without it, the patch isn't standing still while you focus on other things. It's shrinking. Just slowly enough that you don't feel it week to week. Until one day the numbers tell you something you weren't expecting. And by that point, it's already been happening for a long time. The problem doesn't announce itself. It compounds. And the longer prospecting stays at the bottom of your list, the more ground there is to make up before you're even growing again. Here's where most salespeople get the diagnosis wrong, and it's the reason the standard fix doesn't work. The most common response to "I'm not prospecting enough" is to try to find more time for it. Block out a morning, put it in the diary, protect it, and for a week or two it works. Then a customer issue lands on that protected morning, something genuine, something that needs dealing with, and it's not a difficult decision. The customer gets handled. The prospect calls get moved to the next week. And the following week, a colleague needs a slot for a catch-up, and that block morning is the obvious place to put it. The week after that, it's something else. And within a month, the diary block still exists, but it hasn't been used for prospecting in weeks. And here's the thing, the intention behind that diary block was completely genuine. The time was there, technically. But the moment anything with real urgency appeared, and something always does, prospecting moved, because a customer issue has weight. It has someone waiting on the other end of it. The prospect calls have neither of those things, and no diary entry changes that. But there's something else going on too, and it's worth being honest about. Prospecting is uncomfortable in a way that account management isn't. Calling someone who doesn't know you, who hasn't asked to hear from you, who might not be particularly pleased to hear from you, that's a different kind of work to servicing a relationship that already exists. And when a customer call comes in on the morning you blocked out for prospecting, it doesn't just feel more urgent, it feels like a legitimate reason not to do the uncomfortable thing, a reason that you can live with. So the diary block fails for two reasons, not one. The structure doesn't make prospecting feel non-negotiable, and the human instinct to avoid discomfort does the rest. Both things are true, and both need addressing, which means the fix isn't finding more time, it's changing the status of prospecting in how the week is built, giving it the kind of weight that means it doesn't move when something easier comes along. Here's what the real shift looks like. The question most salespeople are asking is, how do I find more time to prospect? But that's the wrong question, because time was never the real problem. The right question is, have I given prospecting the status it deserves in how my week is built? And for most salespeople working in most teams, the honest answer is no. Prospecting isn't a task you fit around the real work. It is the real work. It's the foundation the territory is built on, not the overflow you get when everything else is done. Existing accounts are what you're working with right now, but without new accounts coming in at the bottom, every relationship you lose just quietly shrinks the territory. The ceiling stays where it is, or drops. And that process is already underway in any territory where prospecting doesn't have a protected, non-negotiable place in the week. The salespeople and teams who get this right aren't more disciplined than everyone else. They've just given prospecting the correct status in the process. They treat it in the way they treat a customer commitment, something with a defined output, a fixed point in the week that has to happen, and a real consequence if it doesn't. Not a good intention, not a diary block that anything can displace, a commitment the week is built around. That's the difference between a territory that grows and one that slowly contracts. Not effort, not intention, structure. If you want to understand where your time is going right now, before you start redesigning anything, there's a free diagnostic in the description called Where Your Sales Time Is Actually Going. It maps how your time is currently split across your area, and it's usually the first step in making a change like this stick.